This is actually going to be recorded, so if you want to watch it afterwards as well, you can do that. And let's see if it works. Display settings, duplicate slideshow. Cool. So you're all here, so I'm sure you know you're here for a workshop. It's called Don't Stop Believing, and it's about setting goals and achieving them. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about goals throughout the workshop. We're also going to be talking specifically more about your goals, because I can talk all about how to set up goals, but if we go over exactly your goals, I think it would be more helpful for you to actually have that information and see how it is applied. So we're going to talk about SMART goals, if you've heard of that. We're going to do kind of like a game plan and go a little bit more in depth, because sometimes when we actually talk about goals, we can be like, for those New Year's resolutions, we can be kind of vague and then completely forget about those. So we're going to get really specific on how to achieve them, what's going to help us, what can take us back. I hate my voice. My name is Maria, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask, stop me. I sometimes tend to talk fast, so if you need me to slow down, let me know. I work at the Student Academic Resource Center, or SARC, if you've never been there before. We are, hold on, I'll get there in a second. I'll talk about SARC in a second. But if you have not done that yet, you can go ahead and do the Goose Chase app thing to make sure you get your points. And if you want, you can take a selfie with the screen. You can take a selfie afterwards, whatever you want to do. But you already know about that, so I won't go more in details about that. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about SARC and our services, and it's great because we are all here, actually. So has anyone ever heard of SARC before? Cool. Have you ever been to SARC before?
I have not.
You have not? Okay. So SARC stands for Student Academic Resource Center, and it's one of the services on campus that we have, that we provide for most of the classes. And we provide peer tutoring, so you'll know what tutoring is. I'm pretty sure it's the standard form of tutoring. And we have it in our SARC lab back in Trevor Colburn Hall, room 117. Then we also have supplemental instruction, which is a little bit different from tutoring. SI leaders help students work through their problems and go over material from the class, but the format that it's done is more group-based. And a huge distinction between the two of them is that peer tutoring is targeted specific for certain classes, and then supplemental instruction is targeted specific for the class and the instructor, so the section of each class. Let's see, what majors do we have? What's your major? Bio? Kinesiology? Biology? Finance. Okay, so we do have a lot of biology classes. I'm guessing you have to take like anatomy and classes like that, or not?
Well, I transferred, so I got all those basic classes out the way. Okay,
so some of them you might have to. And then we do have accounting and managerial accounting, something like that, for like finance classes. So our schedule is out, and you can attend either SI and tutoring. They're all free. Then you just find the class that you need to learn, the class that you're taking, and then you go to the services that we have to offer. Then we also have academic coaching and engagement, and we have Kiara and Hannah in the back who are in charge of that. And academic coaching is basically like what we do in workshops, but specifically targeted to you, like an individual session. And you can meet as often as you want with a coach, and as many times as you want throughout the semester with a coach. So if you're really struggling with developing study skills, but maybe we don't have a specific we don't have the classes that you're taking right now, or you don't need it for a specific class, but more broad, like general for things about like college, then you can meet with a coach to go over study skills, time management skills, setting SMART goals, making sure you're getting ready to, if you're graduating soon, like getting ready, and you want to go into grad school, building up your like study skills and all that. So you can meet with a coach. Then we also have academic success workshops, which is what you're in today, and we have them throughout the semester, so you can go to, if you feel like this helped you, but maybe you want to go over how to prepare for finals, we'll have one once finals are coming around, so you can go over that as well. And then we also have some online support. You can go to our website, and like all the handouts that you have right now, those are in our SARC Online website, so you can go over those as well. And any questions about any SARC services right now? Everything's free. Well, you're already paying for it, so I would go ahead and just take advantage of those. And we're pretty cool at the office. So setting goals. So there are different theories, and I know not everybody loves to talk about theories, but I want to talk a little bit about this so that you can get a sense of why we do the things that we do. So there are 3 different theories on setting goals. and kind of like getting the motivation to get them. One is the needs theory, that is that motivation comes from a desire to satisfy a need. So whether you want to make someone proud, maybe because you yourself want to feel successful, it's more of a within or something that comes within rather than an external source of gratification. Then there's the expectancy theory, which is that motivation comes from the expectation that there will be a reward. So this is more of doing something to please someone. Maybe you were in high school and your parents would tell you like, hey, if you get all A's, I'll pay for it. I'll give you money or something like that. That is finding an external resource that would kind of like motivate you to get there. And then there's the attribution theory, which is that motivation comes from how you interpret past failures and successes. So this is for you if you're someone that really likes to grow and who feels like sometimes you'll struggle, but then you'll get back and continue going, and then that's going to make you someone better and make you attain your goals better, then that's more of the attribution theory. So again, when you do things, sometimes they'll come from a desire to satisfy a need, sometimes you'll do it because there will be a reward. There's always something behind, and it's important to identify why you're doing things as well, because then that could help you push yourself. Sometimes you would be, your motivation might come from a reward, but you don't really feel like the reward is enough, so then your motivation won't be as much. So that's when you need to also kind of like think about, well, what can I do? How is this going to help me? How is this going to be important for me in the future? And that's when you start looking around, okay, it's not just for the reward, but I'm also doing it for something else. So a good example would be like classes. You could try to get all A's because your parents want to pay for you. But then you can also think, oh, if I get all A's, then I'm going to also be proud of myself. And if I get all A's after I struggle with all these courses, then that means that I'm getting better at what I'm doing. So that's also looking at how you can kind of like motivate yourself more whenever you're struggling and you're like, I'm about to give up. So goals, they give you a path to follow. They help you visualize and plan smaller actions that build or impact a greater ideal. So this is when you're like, if you think about a huge goal, like I want to graduate. Like, yeah, graduation is amazing. We all want to graduate. But then how can you make it so that it's more manageable? What do you need to do so that you can graduate? So that's why setting big goals is important, but then going back and creating kind of a path for you to follow will help you take the actual steps. Because you could be on like any random day, you could be like, oh, I want to go, to whatever social event there's that day, and you could be like, sure, I will just skip studying and not do my homework. But then if you look at the long term, then you can be like, okay, if I skip my homework, how's my grade going to be affected, and how can I make up for it? So it's important to know what you're trying to attain. Again, they also make you responsible for your own actions and successes or failures, so you're not just saying like, oh, everything happens to me, or you start blaming other people, and that's not something you want to do. If you are setting your own goals and establishing a path for you to follow, then you can say, oh, whether I took the steps or not, that's on me. And then also goals can help motivate you, which is also very important. Do we have any questions so far? Any comments, anything you want to add?
You're doing great.
Thank you. So you're all students in college. So what are some of your common goals? Graduating. Awesome.
Get straight A's.
Get straight A's. Great. What else? Make friends.
Get some sleep.
Main goal, main priority for me. Get involved. Anything else? Get a job, hopefully.
Yeah. Don't go broke.
Don't go broke. That's a huge. Sometimes we forget about that. It kind of slips. But yeah, so those are some of the goals. And these are some of the ones we talked about. So like making new friends, continuing to earn good grades, establishing a direction for your life. So you all said you had a declared major. That's great. Maybe you're still figuring out within that major what you want to do with it. And college is a great opportunity. So maybe you are going to have to explore what options are there for someone with a major in biology. What could I do with it? How can I branch out and find exactly what I want to do with my life? And then connecting to campus is also great, which you're all doing with the Goose Chase app, which is awesome. And then some other academic goals like you talked about. So being in the President's Honor Roll, which is earning a UCF semester GPA of 4.0, Then there's the Dean's List, which is a minimum UCF GPA of 3.4. So if you want to put that in your resume, that might be a goal. So the first step in achieving a goal is actually identifying it. So you'll mention different goals, but I want you to think of just one of those, whether that's good grades, whether that's getting involved, getting a job, getting whatever it is of the things you talked about. And we're going to be smart. It could also be sleep. Like if you're really deprived of sleep, that's not good. That's not going to help you with anything else. So I want you all to picture that one goal. And that's what we're going to work on as we go through the next part. And you have all the information that we have upcoming on that handout that says SMART. So feel free to take a look at it. And this is what we're going to start filling out now. But first, think of that goal that you're setting in mind. And then these are the next steps that you're going to take. Has anyone ever heard of SMART goals before? Cool. Awesome. So what's the first thing about SMART goals? What does the S stand for?
You want to be specific.
Great. You have the cheat sheet there. Yes, so you want to be specific. So SMART is an acronym to make sure that when you're setting goals, you're being very purposeful with those and that you're trying to be as detailed as you can so that you can achieve them better. You can really measure them. You can really kind of like have a sense of when have I accomplished that. So the first part is being specific. So this is explaining the goal in detail. Can someone else understand the goal? So tell me all about your goals, the goals that you're thinking right now. We're going to start over there. What's your goal right now?
Like right now?
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to gain weight, but yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're trying to gain weight. That's when we're starting to be specific. We'll come back to that one because you can get even more specific. That also goes into measurable. So you're trying to gain weight. What are you trying to do? We have SI in tutoring by the way. So pass or go 2 with a B plus or higher. Okay, cool. We'll get back to that one. What's yours?
Get straight A's.
Get straight A's. Okay, cool.
Try to figure out what career I want to do with my major.
Perfect. So finding a career path. Okay. So now that you know that, that's kind of specific. And as we go through them, they get even more specific. But a vague one would be to get good grades, or it would be to be a good student. That's kind of vague versus saying, I want to get this grade in this class. That's being very specific. Same thing. And then with yours, we'll get to work on that even more. And then gaining weight too. Once you get to the next one, you can be even more specific. So that's measurable. How can you actually make sure that you've attained that goal? For you two, getting straight A's, like you know how to do it. Like if you go on your report at the end of the semester and you get straight A's, cool. If you get a B plus, you've got it. So now we have to figure out for both of you, what would that look like? And you don't have to share it because it might be for whatever reason, but think about how you could measure. So for you, it might be how much weight do you want to gain, or to how much, is it fat percentage you want to go lower to, whatever it is that you would try to find, that would go for it. For you, it's kind of like, how could you measure that? Let's think. Would it be finding a job that you want to have in the future? Could it be finding some type of research you want to go into? Could it be finding someone that works in a field that you want to work in? Those are kind of like some more specific things that you could go into. You could think about those. You might come up with a different one, but just think about that as we go. And then the next one is attainable. And that's whether determining your goal is attainable or not. And it's whether you can make it or not. So sometimes we'll set a goal where your GPA comes from a 1.0, and then you're like, I'm going to get straight A's. And that's when I was a coach, I would be like, let's have a chat. I'm glad that's your goal, but maybe we can go and try to find something that's more like in the middle. So think about that for yourself, whether having that goal is attainable for you, whether you think maybe you should change it. If you are like, yeah, I failed Orgo 1 5 times. Yeah, I took it 5 times, but I still have to struggle with it. I'm sure you didn't, by the way. But if that were the case, then how could I change it? And then the next part is whether it's relevant. So why do you think your goals are important? And I know probably you're like, mine is obvious why mine is important, but I'm going to ask you to share it. So why do you think your goal is important?
So I don't waste time doing random classes, so I could get major-specific classes.
Perfect. Awesome. What about you?
Well, my goal is relevant because it's going to keep me involved in school and not just blow off my classes, and then it's not going to waste my money on the classes.
True.
And it's also just going to keep my GPA up, and I'll actually learn something in class if I try to get straight A's. So.
That's great. Awesome.
It's important for medical schools to see that prospective students have the ability to maintain low grades in these classes. And I think that's a core one as well. And I also don't want to lose money.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you have financial aid or anything like that, that could also impact your need for grades. If you want to work at SARC, we need an A in the classes that you want to do SI or tutoring for, so that could be a thing. What about you?
I guess it's important for my future career, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. Then again, sometimes we'll set up goals that we think are oh, I really want to get this, but then you don't see the end goal, and then you keep pushing them, and you keep procrastinating on them. So it's very important to make sure that what you're going for is something that you really want, and that you think will help you in some way. And then finally, which is the part that everybody forgets when setting SMART goals, and it's creating a timeline or a deadline for yourself. So for some of you, it is kind of set, because you have the semester, so by the end of the semester you'll know, okay, if I did get the grades, then I'm good. If I didn't, I need to work on it next semester. But for you two, it might not be time bound. So what do you think? And also depends on what you're measuring it with. So if you're measuring with, for example, in your case, if you're measuring finding a career path by having done work in the different fields and having been part of different research projects or working with different instructors or volunteering in different things, then your time limit might be longer than maybe this semester or a year or so. And then in your case, depending on how much weight you want to gain, then that also changes how long you're going to be working on that. So now that we've talked about this, please write down that goal in goal number 1, or if you have something already written there, you can go goal number 2. And again, make sure you're writing that it's specific, how specific it is, that that you're using measurable points, that it is something attainable. We talked about this. We already talked about why it was relevant. You can also write it down so that when you look at it, you think about why you're working towards that, and then also write the timeline or your deadline. And then you've got space for a second goal. So I would suggest that when you go back home after you're done with this, after you're done with the workshop, you keep thinking about whether there's another goal that you're thinking about. And I also suggest that you don't go all crazy with all the goals that you want to set for yourself, because while it is important to have goals, it is also important for you to work towards them. And if you have a lot of them, it can be hard to use the willpower that you have for all of them.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Yes, it can be. When you're working, if you have 5 classes, this is the same thing. If you have 5 classes, you might be stressed. If you take it down to 4, it might be easier to manage. You might get better grades. So it's the same thing. I'm going to keep going, but feel free to go back and continue adding as we talk about it, because you might be thinking about changing it, tweaking it, adding a few things. Still feel free to do that. So that's great. Now you already have a goal. That's the first step. Now we need to go to planning about it. And the reason that I brought this kind of worksheet thing is because I really, really like that back part, because it's something that when we think about goals, we don't really talk about them. So if you can flip your page from where you were writing the goal, that top back part, I think it's really important. And the first one is talking about the benefits if your goal is achieved. So we already talked about that, but feel free to write them down as well. Think about, besides getting improving your GPA, what else comes from getting good grades? Think about maybe if you find a career you will really enjoy, how does that relate to your happiness in the future? Thinking about how gaining weight could help you with, if you want to do other types of exercises, I don't know, how could that help you as well? Self-esteem, sense of achievement, those are also things we don't tend to think about, but those are also really important. How passing Orgo 2 with a B+ would feel like you've mastered the world, because Orgo 2, like, that's hard. And the next part is the costs if a goal is not achieved, which I also think sometimes it can be a motivator when you think about all the horrible things that could happen. You don't want to stay in that, but you also want to think about what could happen if you don't achieve that goal. So that's also kind of like a reminder of this is why this is important. So go ahead and think about that for a second and write it down. If you feel like sharing, feel free to. But something could be it could be something like, if I don't achieve this goal, I'm going to feel like a failure, or I'm going to have to retake this particular class, or I will be taking classes that I might not be interested in, or I won't be able to reach certain level of complexity at exercises or something like that. Cool. And now, before we start writing in the next one, I want to go over a few things that are self-defeating behaviors in college that could be obstacles for whatever it is that whatever your goals are. And this applies to classes, this applies to other things that you might be doing. So for example, one could be skipping class. You want to get A's, but if you're skipping class and you're not making up for it, then how are you going to get A's? Or you could be trying to gain weight, but if you're skipping meal prepping, how are you going to be eating what you should be eating? Another thing is turning substandard work for your classes. So it could be that you just are too lazy and are not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing, and you're turning in homework 5 minutes before it's due, and you started it 5 minutes earlier than that. It could also be that you are, instead of like, if you're trying to find your career, then it could be that instead of going really hard at trying to volunteer at different things, you're not actually signing up for those things. Another thing is not making up for missed work. So let's say you do have events that come up, which is completely normal, and you're being flexible with that, but then you missed something, and you're not making sure that you're getting back at it, that you're not, like, let's say you did a meal prep on Sunday, which is the day you meal prep, and then you skip the entire week because you did it on Sunday when you could have done it on Monday as well. A huge thing is not asking questions, and for this I'm going to get more to the next one, which is not getting help from the available resources. So like I've been saying it the entire time, but you've got SARC if you're talking about your grades. You've got the gym, you have the RWC, you've got trainers there. We've got career services who can help you find different paths within your career. We also have instructors that could talk to you about it. So not getting help is a self-defeating behavior that doesn't help you attain those goals. And then whenever we talk about doing something, not having a fixed schedule or a to-do list or some type of time management system to make sure you're being on track and keeping on route with the things you're saying you're going to do can also stop you from doing all that. If you're talking about your grades, not buying the textbooks or not reading your textbooks or not planning or preparing for exams or papers. And then the last one, which we talked a little bit before about, was procrastination. So thinking about this, you can go ahead and write, but I'm going to ask you at least to share one of those behaviors that, while it's here, you might not do all of them, but there might be a few of them that you actually do, bless you. There might be other ones. So I'm going to ask you to share at least one anticipated barrier, challenge, or obstacle. Something that could stop you, something you do consistently that could stop you from achieving that goal. So I'm going to start here. Okay, that's great. So how do you think that could stop you?
Not being able to pick one, and then I have to just find a major, just have to deal with it, I guess.
Perfect. So that's something you already know about yourself. That's great. Then you can go ahead and we'll go on that for the next one and start thinking about, okay, how can I work around that, which is important. What about you, Noah?
Social life, friends, kind of like just time where I'm not able to study. So.
Great. And we'll also talk about how you could fix that later. But yeah.
Procrastination, become good at it. Very stressful.
If only that were the goal. Yeah. Yeah, procrastination can for sure be a huge thing. What about you?
Yeah, so I'm also guilty of procrastination as well.
Okay. So yeah, I think procrastination is a huge thing, and I think we're going to get time to talk about it, but I also have this list that I gave you that's on your tables that talks also a little bit about procrastination and a few things that kind of like lead you to procrastinate more than you should. So you can go over those, and I'm pretty sure if we had a workshop last semester on procrastination, you can also watch that, and I'm pretty sure we'll have one throughout the semester, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. Great question, Jesse. The videos are on YouTube, right?
Yes.
And so if you search for our SARC website, our SARC YouTube channel, you can find them. And then the very last column on that, on motivation and anticipation, is finding solutions, support, and resources. So this is very different. It could talk back to the barriers you already have, the challenges and obstacles that you're already facing, but it could also be something that you probably don't do that could help you motivate yourself, like, what are those called? I forgot the name. A vision board. So like you might not do a vision board, but maybe it could help you, so that's something you could add. So in that part about potential solutions, support, and resources, I also want you to write a few things. If you're talking about the classes, hint, SARC is one as well. So write one down, and then I'll also have you share and why you chose that one. This could also be people. Like if you have people in your life who you know will push you to do things, that's great. I used to have friends who really struggle a lot with procrastination, but they were really good at taking my phone away from me, and I was good at taking their phone away from them. Like they would try to snatch it from me, and I'm like, no, you're not doing that. So that was my friend that I would try to go to the library with. My friends that really like to talk to me about their personal lives while I'm trying to study and I have a test, those are not my friends that I go to the library with. Okay, so what are some solutions, support, and resources that we have? I'm going to have you all share, so.
I wrote like pros and cons list, like maybe logic it out.
Yeah.
Since I'm indecisive.
That's a great one, yeah, definitely. You can write and start thinking about, well, if I go for this way, if for this choice, this is something that could be good. That's a great one. Awesome.
I just put like make a schedule, like a day schedule. That way I know what time I should be doing what.
Yeah.
I'm not just like, oh, you want to hang out? Sure. Like I have something to look at. So.
Yeah, and that's great. I think it's also important when you're doing your schedule, and we have also a full-on workshop, and you can talk to our coaches, but when you're doing your schedule, we know these things are going to come up. Like, you're not going to completely neglect your friends for an entire semester because you're trying to get good grades. Like, you can balance your life, but it's a matter of finding the appropriate times to do so. If you know your friends are always wanting to do something at 5 p.m., even though it's Monday, then you know everything should be done before 5 p.m. And that's when you can start setting yourself up for success by planning ahead. And also, if you're planning ahead with enough time, you can move things around so that if something comes up, you can do something later, but you still know, okay, I moved this one time, I need to do it the next time. Awesome. What about you?
Yeah, with the planner, I also use the physical one as well as on my notepad. I feel like writing down helps me more because I'm memorizing it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think with that also helps that you can set with a to-do list, like you can set very specific things of what you're going to do and really break down things into small points, which is great. And that also motivates you, like when you cross that thing off and you're like, yes, I did everything. What about you?
So I like started using like a planner for like pretty much everything I do. So
Yeah, and you can add, the good thing about planners is you can add just anything that you need to, and you can modify them. Like, you can record information as you need to. So whether that's talking about your classes, whether that's talking about other personal goals that you have, you can just have everything in one place, which is really helpful as well. So some other tools for success are setting up a reward system. For me, I really struggled with reading textbooks. So I would have like gummy bears. I love gummy bears, and like that's my guilty pleasure. So I would only have them when I read a textbook. That way it was kind of like not as horrible because I could eat gummy bears. You can also do it where at the end of something you get, like if you finish reading this chapter, like you can watch a TV show or something like that. Just make sure you're not like studying for 20 minutes and then watching like a movie. Like, just be proportionate with that. Also thinking about your long-term goals. Again, we kind of wrote a little bit about those in the front of the page, but thinking about how does that relate to who I want to be in the future, like 5 years from now, how is that going to help me? Thinking about the positive consequences of being productive and proactive. How are you going to feel after that as well? And then we wrote those down, but negative consequences of not achieving them. You can also create a vision board of dreams, post messages to yourself by common distractors. So if you know your phone is a distractor, like you could have as a screensaver something that says, get out of here, something like that. Sometimes it helps, like after a while you get used to it and then you have to change it again. And you can also use technology and apps to prevent you from being off task. So there's one called Forest, where I don't know if they take money away from you or you just plant a tree. I know there's one that takes money away from you if you use your phone, which is sad. But like if you're really struggling with procrastination, you're not going to be, and they're like taking like $10 out of your bank account. You're going to be like, okay, we need to stop this. Hopefully you don't stop using the app, you stop using your phone. But there's that. And then for vision boards, I'm going to be really honest. At first I was skeptical about those. And then I was like, okay, they have it. People talk about those goals when they talk about goals, they talk about vision boards. I'm going to go ahead and do one for the for this workshop. And I did one. And it was really, it was really good because it really helped me to put into perspective what do I want to achieve with my goals and why am I doing them. One, of course, is graduating. Another one is eating healthy. Another one is traveling, and for that I need money. So if I do see a photo of Italy, like I'll think about why I shouldn't go to like Chick-fil-A and buy food. And then the other ones are like notes, because I do want to get good grades. I want to make sure that my grades I stay on top of my grades. And then, of course, like motivational quotes. I also used to be very skeptical about those, but I have found that if you find very specific ones, they do help you motivate yourself a little bit more and kind of like set your day. So I highly encourage you all to try to do that. You can have it as your phone wallpaper, as your computer screensaver, or just print it out. Some people really like doing crafts, so you could do that as well. And then another thing is using your long-term goals to achieve short-term goals and vice versa. So we kind of brushed on this a little bit, but it's finding things like a short-term goal could be for you being involved in different activities that are around your major and things you could do with it. That's a short-term goal, but the long-term goal is finding a career path. So you can use those two, and that's when we're going to go for the next part of the worksheet that you have. And that is setting tasks that you need to do to achieve those goals. So if you're in class, it's pretty straightforward. You have to study, but how can you be more specific? You could have a test, and that could be the first part about breaking down your goals. So it could be getting an A in this test, getting a B+ in this test. So that could be something. In your case, it could be something about eating, like I'm going to start meal prepping or exercising this amount of times per week, and by this time I'm going to do it. In your case, it could be finding an instructor, finding someone to work with, going to career services could be a thing, because they also help you out with that. So I want you to think about a few of those tasks you can do to achieve your goals, write them down, and also write a due date. I know it can seem kind of silly to do it, but this is going to push you to actually be like, okay, I actually have to do it. I have to put it in my calendar, in my agenda, in my planner. So go ahead and think about those for a few minutes. Feel free to keep thinking about those as we go, but we're almost near the end, so I want to go over a few more slides. Goals are amazing. Setting them is great. Now, once you have that, it's the part about getting through with them and making sure you are actually trying to get there, making sure you are working towards them, and that requires grit. Grit is having the determination and tenacity to persevere and endure to achieve your goals. So you need to take that end goal of yours and use it as a motivation to achieve short-term goals and vice versa. If you're constantly thinking about your goals, then you're thinking about a bigger reward. When people come around and try to have you do something, like in the case of friends, when they're like, let's do this thing, and you're like, no, I can't because I'm having to do this this homework assignment that's due today. If I don't do it, I'll fail the homework assignment. Then you're also thinking about your goals. You're thinking like, if I fail this, then that means I'm being more in trouble about getting this particular grade that I want, or I won't be able to even get it. So thinking about those goals and the satisfaction that comes with achieving them and the benefits of achieving them, that's what helps you make sure you're pushing through them. But it also requires a lot of willpower. And the thing about willpower is that it's limited. So you want to make sure that the things that you're writing down to do are actually things that are very important for you and are things that you can do. Hopefully, usually you have more willpower in the morning. So that's why they say like you should go exercise in the morning. So thinking about that, how can you make sure that you're doing like your assignments? I'm not saying you have to wake up at 6 a.m. because I ain't doing that. But it's thinking about how can you make sure you're doing your things earlier so that you can push through it and make sure that grid's still there. And then making sure that even if you, for some reason, like didn't get a particular grade in a particular exam, got a setback on a specific thing, you can still say, it's okay, I'm going to pick this up and keep on going. It is hard. If you've ever tried a goal, you know things like that are hard, but you know they're not impossible. So it's important to keep thinking about that. And I really like this. It's called the grid ladder, and it's how a huge thing can be broken down into something small, and how small things actually impact the bigger things. So sometimes you don't even think about those classes that you have to take that are just like requirement. But if you're thinking about your end goal, which is your final GPA, then those classes still matter. And that one exam that you have coming up that you don't want to go, that your friends are telling you to, let's go out, even though it's like 3 days from now, then that's when it starts to matter when you look at the long term. So you can do that as well. We've kind of done a little bit of this with breaking down tasks, but you can also do that with like some of the goals that you already have. Those might be at the top of the ladder, it might be in the middle or at the very bottom. And you can think about other things that are tied to it, which is really important as well. A cute picture of human beings. Other tools for success that we have are telling friends and families your goals and what you need to do to be successful so they can support you and help keep you accountable. So one example is like the gym. Like I personally hate going to the gym, but I have told all my friends like we need to actually start going to the gym, and they've some of them will be like, oh, I don't want to go today, but another one will be like, yeah, I'm feeling like going today. So those friends, if you have a few people who can help you with that, that's amazing because they'll push you, and you can push them when they need it as well. Using study groups to help make you to make sure you spend time studying. So maybe you want to start reserving a room in the library to go to study. You might want to find people who you can consistently study with. You might want to go to Stark for studying. Get involved in things that are related to your academics to energize you, inspire you in your courses and majors. Sometimes your friends usually your friends are not in the same majors that you are, but if you find people who are within that same major and who are going through the same classes, that can be very motivating, and they can help you push through some of the difficult times as well. Self-care is always important. Make sure you're sleeping, for the love of God, please. It's really important. If you wake up and you're not feeling good and you're not energized, then how are you going to attain any of what we're talking about? How are you going to get good grades in class? How are you going to make sure you're eating? How are you going to make sure you are actually trying to go above and beyond and do better if you're not even able to stay awake? Practicing self-discipline is really hard, but if you wait to be in the mood to do homework, you're never going to be in the mood of doing it. Like, no one is like, yeah, today I feel like just doing homework all day. Like, it's not going to happen. So quit thinking about that and start thinking about, I don't want to do it, but I have to because of my goals. We already talked a little bit about that, but setting up a time management system to keep you on track is really, really helpful to make sure that you are writing down what you say you're going to do it, because if you see it and you're like, oh, I didn't do all these things today, then you can be like, okay, what do I need to change? Using all the resources that we have at UCF as for free, that's great. We have SARC, we have our WC, we have career services, we have the Math Success Center. Like, we have a lot of resources that you can use to help you out, and also a lot of organizations that are out there that can help you get involved and find even more resources within your own fields of study. And again, just combining any options listed, finding all the resources that you can, making sure you're staying strong and pushing through the hard times. And some finalizing guiding principles are always keep track of your goals. Don't let them be lost. Like, don't throw this paper away. You can put them pretty in the computer or somewhere. And this is something that a lot of college students have, that wall calendar. If you want to put it up there, go for it. Break down the steps as we were doing. You can do even more of that. Once you have finalized those, you can add more steps. Assess your goals periodically so that you can see, what am I failing at? What should I be rethinking? Why am I not doing it? Because that could be a thing. Like, a month from now, you could be like really struggling with your goal and be like, why am I not doing it? And that's when you have to reassess and figure out where are your priorities and what was the motivator behind those. We already talked about your obstacles. Keep thinking about those so that you can overcome them and find ways to go around them. Follow through to achieve success, and reward yourself for achieving your goals if that's something you like. I feel like a lot of the times it's just your own feeling of, I freaking did it, like, awesome, like, how I thought this was impossible. I didn't think that was going to happen. And then you look back and you're like, I struggled, but I pushed through it. And that feeling is great. More people. And some of the services that we have, or the people that we have that can help you, are your professors. Don't be scared to reach out, to go to office hours, talk to them, let them know you. Your academic advisor could help you out as well, figuring out what classes to take, depending on what field you want to go into. The Office of Student Financial Assistant, Career Services is a great resource. CAPS, so Counseling Center, the Student Academic Resource Center, which I'm sure I've talked a lot about it, UCF Cares, any UCF website, your friends, your roommates, your study buddies, your family, just anyone around here is willing to help you. With that, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, but thank you for being here, for spending almost an hour with me. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. And if you have anything for me to sign up, please bring it. And there's also an evaluation that I'm going to ask you to fill out. And then you can just leave it on the table and we come collect them. But thank you, and have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thank you.